The story begins with a high school student named Mizuno who finds himself in a difficult situation after the classroom's seating is shuffled. He now sits next to a girl he has a hard time dealing with, a girl named Kotoha Wakeo. As she turns to greet him one morning, it becomes clear she isn't just an ordinary girl. To Mizuno's absolute horror, his new seatmate is a naprobo, a type of ghost with a completely blank, featureless face. The shock sends Mizuno reeling in his chair, letting out a scream of terror while Wakeo seems taken aback by his reaction. He frantically waves his arms, trying to get her to stop whatever she is doing, though she seems just as confused. A strange dynamic forms between them, where the faceless Wakeo closely observes Mizuno, apparently using his facial expressions as a reference for herself. While she studies him, he looks incredibly annoyed. This introduces the first mystery. The girl sitting next to him is completely faceless. However, the situation gets even stranger as two of their classmates are shown admiring Wakeo from a distance, calling her a beauty. This reveals the second mystery. Everyone else in the class can see her face normally, and the phenomenon is exclusive to Mizuno. Their interactions continue to be bizarre, with Wakeo once asking Mizuno if he would cry for her just so she could see his crying face, an offer he flatly refuses. Later, Mizuno's friends chat amongst themselves, noting that Wakeo has been acting differently ever since the seat change. They recall how she used to have a creepy, blank expression all the time and wonder if something happened, though they quickly dismiss the idea that Mizuno could have anything to do with it. Meanwhile, Wakeo is seen stretching by the window, enjoying the warm spring day. Mizuno watches her, thinking about how her expressions are a great reference for studying, even though he also finds it hard to tell what she's thinking. Their day concludes with a strange conversation where Wakeo, looking downcast, tells Mizuno about bumping into someone and asks him if he believes in ghosts, which only serves to scare him more. The next day in class, the teacher is at the blackboard while the students work. The warm atmosphere and the monotonous sound of a literature reading make Mizuno incredibly tired. He fights to stay awake but eventually gives in, laying his head down on his desk, completely exhausted. As the teacher calls his name, Mizuno sinks further into his slumber. Just as he's drifting off, the faceless Wakeo leans in close to warn him that he'll get caught if he falls asleep, but a sleepy Mizuno just tells her to leave him alone. Unfazed, Wakeo says she will give him something strong and stimulating to wake him up. She then pokes him with the sharp tip of her mechanical pencil, giving it a squeeze. The sudden sharp sensation jolts Mizuno awake with a start. In that instant of surprise, Mizuno looks up and sees an unbelievable sight. Wakeo's face is suddenly visible to him, and it's filled with a look of complete and utter shock, her eyes wide and her cheeks flushed. He is stunned to see her fully expressive face for the first time. As he shouts out that her face was visible, she lets out a shriek and her features vanish once more, leaving her a blank slate as she covers her mouth. Mizuno, now intrigued, asks if she can do it again. Wakeo, once again faceless, seems to ponder this for a moment with a thoughtful heh. This leads to the third mystery of their relationship. Her face appears to him sometimes. In the aftermath, Wakeo now has a visible, blushing expression as she looks away shyly, while Mizuno, sitting beside her, confirms that he is definitely awake now. She apologizes, making an excuse about a bug, clearly embarrassed by the reveal, while he assures her he is fine. Mizuno sits thoughtfully at his school desk while recalling a brief, drowsy moment when he saw his classmate Wakeo's face. He had always believed she was simply faceless, so this fleeting glimpse has him determined to see her true face again. As he sits in class lost in thought, Mizuno theorizes that there must be a specific condition for her face to appear. He remembers a previous encounter and comes to the exciting conclusion that making physical contact with Wakeo will reveal her features. Mizuno understands that his idea sounds strange and would likely creep Wakeo out, so he devises a few strategies to create a natural-seeming physical interaction. His first plan involves distracting her by pointing out a non-existent cat in the schoolyard. Wakeo excitedly takes the bait and rushes to the window to look for the kitty. While she is distracted and leaning on the windowsill, Mizuno slowly moves his hand closer to hers, intending to make his finger touch hers. This attempt fails spectacularly as he is suddenly thrown back from the window, with Wakeo looking over inquisitively. Undeterred, Mizuno moves on to his second plan, which involves a ball. He approaches Wakeo while holding a ball, claiming it belongs to him. She kindly hands the ball back to him, and as she does, their hands touch. Mizuno flashes a huge, triumphant grin, absolutely certain that this time his plan worked. However, a later scene shows him back at his desk looking completely dejected, revealing that his second attempt also failed and nothing is going well for him. He hatches a new idea born from his failures, deciding to use the pass-the-eraser strategy. He casually flips an eraser off his desk, letting it land on the floor right next to Wakeo's feet. With a cheerful expression, Mizuno offers to pick it up for her, hoping their hands will brush against each other in a natural way when he returns it. His plan is interrupted when Wakeo notices he hasn't been working on the class handout they need to turn in. Mizuno is flustered and embarrassed, realizing he should have focused on his work instead of his schemes. Wakeo mentions she was curious about what he was doing all morning, and he admits he's stuck on a question. She kindly helps him, pointing to a spot on the handout where the answer is hidden in tiny letters on the next page. As Mizuno leans in very close to see the small text, Wakeo suddenly strikes him on the forehead with her finger. Shocked by the unexpected contact, Mizuno wonders if this could be the moment. He looks over at Wakeo only to see that her face is still blank and nothing has changed at all. Horrified, Mizuno realizes his entire theory about physical contact might be wrong, leaving him with no other methods and an unfinished handout that Wakeo-san sits at her desk, resting her chin on her hand while lost in thought, and she expresses a deep desire to do something that truly embodies the spirit of youth. In the classroom, a boy with light-colored hair named Mizuno-san looks back in surprise, realizing that her quiet declaration was actually directed towards him. Wakeo-san then approaches Mizuno-san and explains that she has been watching him because she believes it is difficult to fully experience youth without someone like him by her side, leaving him to wonder about her reasoning. Mizuno-san becomes quite animated and points out that as students, they have a plethora of unique opportunities, illustrating his point with small images of school events, club activities, and simply loitering in their school uniforms. He passionately states that he wants to feel every possible emotion and doesn't want to waste even a single moment of their limited time. He admits that he isn't very good at expressing emotions himself, which is why he needs her and her tendency for big reactions to everything, making him feel a bit flustered. As Wakeo-san listens intently, she realizes there are so many things to choose from, while Mizuno-san leans in and explains that since they only have 3 years, he was hoping she might have a suggestion for them to start with. Suddenly, an image of 2 other students happily eating lunch together on the school's rooftop appears, representing a classic youthful activity that Wakeo-san has seen in manga and commercials. Back in the classroom, Wakeo-san's eyes light up with excitement as she clenches her fists, having found the perfect idea just as the school bell begins to ring. Mizuno-san watches her and thinks to himself that she truly seems to be living her life to the fullest. Without hesitation, Wakeo-san announces she is going and Mizuno-san casually sees her off. She then rushes out of the classroom with a rattling sound, thinking that she can't waste a second because someone else might take her perfect spot on the roof, and Mizuno-san is left behind, musing on her incredible amount of energy. His thoughts are soon interrupted when Wakeo-san returns, and he sees her completely devastated and letting out a loud cry of despair because her plan was thwarted when she discovered the rooftop door was locked. Mizuno-san watches Wakeo-san, who is now slumped over in defeat, and he realizes just how incredibly upset she is about the locked door, making him wonder how much she had been looking forward to it. She laments that her first step toward experiencing youth and having lunch under the sky was a failure, concluding that such perfect moments might only exist in anime and manga before she turns and tells Mizuno-san to come with her. A short while later, Mizuno-san is surprised to find that she has led him to a lovely and quiet school garden. He remarks that he is surprised she knows about this spot, as he only ever passes by it when he's on cleaning duty and taking out the trash. Wakeo-san, however, sees the potential in this new location and declares that having lunch alone together in the school garden sounds just as youthful to her. As they settle in, Mizuno-san expresses his gladness that she likes the spot, and she thanks him for taking the time to show it to her. He then invites her to eat with him since it would be a hassle to go back to the classroom, and she agrees. While Mizuno-san opens his food with a ripping sound, he reflects that he is beginning to understand Wakeo-san's feelings even without being able to see her facial expressions. He then sits down next to her with a soft plop, keeping a slight distance between them. As they sit, he finds himself wondering about her, thinking about how she always goes off by herself for lunch and even questioning how she eats. He tries to sneak a glance at her while she's eating, but he can't quite see. Wakeo-san seems a bit confused by his strange behavior, holding her chopsticks with a large question mark appearing over her head while he frets in frustration. Mizuno-san thinks that it would be rude to move directly in front of her for a better look, so instead, he decides to just ask her what she brought for lunch. Through a series of conversational bubbles appearing among the leaves, she tells him she has 2 onigiri and a croquette, which he notes are staple lunch items. He's surprised to learn she bought them at a convenience store, and she happily adds that the seaweed wrapping on the onigiri is always perfectly crunchy. He agrees that convenience store onigiri are quite good and that he buys them often himself. Wakeo-san then says that eating outside is wonderful and feels like a picnic, fulfilling her wish to eat outdoors, though Mizuno-san internally notes she was heartbroken about the roof just a moment ago. She then turns to him and adds that she is also very happy that she got to eat with him. Her sincere and unexpected comment leaves Mizuno-san completely stunned and blushing intensely. In a shared moment, both he and Wakeo-san are shown with flushed cheeks as she looks off with a serene expression. Overwhelmed by her words, Mizuno-san chokes on his food and accidentally drops his onigiri to the ground with a plop. Wakeo-san jumps in surprise, and he thinks she is kicking him while he's down, but she then kindly offers to share some of her side dishes as a thank you for the day. As she expresses her genuine appreciation, Mizuno-san watches her and thinks about how funny and entertaining she is, feeling that he never gets tired of being around her. A final image shows a small version of Wakeo-san climbing the stairs to the roof, only to be met with the shocking sight of a "No entrance" sign on the locked door, capturing her initial moment of disbelief and disappointment. Wakeo Kodoha from the perspective of her classmate, Mizuno. We see her from behind in her school uniform as she stands in a classroom doorway, and she apparently sits next to Mizuno to study his expressions for reasons he doesn't quite understand. While Mizuno reaches up to clean a high window, he thinks about how she claims her strange behavior is all in the pursuit of youth. A side view of Wakeo shows her holding a cleaning tool as the narration emphasizes that she is a complete enigma to him. The reason for their activity is revealed as an older man with glasses, the school principal, had made a single remark calling the place filthy, which immediately launched the entire school into a massive cleanathon. Mizuno's class of 36 students was divided into groups of 6, each assigned to a different area to clean. Mizuno looks tiredly at the dirty window molding his group is responsible for, but right from the very beginning, 3 members of his group decided to leave, abandoning the workload on him and the 2 remaining students. As Mizuno's hands wring out a wet cloth, he laments how the people who actually care are always the ones left to deal with the extra work left by others. During the cleaning, Wakeo gets very close to Mizuno's face and comments on how much work it is, while he agrees that it's a familiar situation for him. Suddenly, a large splash of water hits a window with a startling whoosh, catching Mizuno completely off guard. He is shown blushing and flustered on the floor as tiny, chibi-style Wakeo crouches nearby, giggling that he made a great face and found his reaction amusing. She then tells a surprised Mizuno that she didn't expect something like this would startle him. Mizuno stares with determination, thinking about how he's tried all sorts of things to see her real face. He explains that Wakeo-san is a naprobo, which a side note clarifies is a mostly harmless yokai with a featureless face that loves to scare humans, and apparently, Mizuno is the only one who sees her this way. A full view shows Wakeo-san standing with a broom, her hand covering her mouth area. Mizuno clenches his fists in frustration, convinced there must be some way to get her to show him her face, but a chaotic montage of his failed attempts shows that all his efforts have ended with no results. His ears then perk up as he remembers someone once told him he looks like a certain person, giving him a brand new idea. With newfound resolve, Mizuno realizes that even if he can't see her face, he can at least get a general idea of her appearance by asking about her lookalikes. He approaches Wakeo while she's cleaning and asks if she's ever been told that she looks like someone famous. The featureless Wakeo looks down for a moment before asking why he wants to know if she has a lookalike. Mizuno explains that someone told him he resembles a trending celebrity and he was wondering if the same thing had happened to her. Wakeo confirms that it has happened, which makes a surprised Mizuno lean in closer. However, his hopes are dashed when she cheerfully reveals that people say she looks just like her cat, causing Mizuno to yell out in shock. He frantically clarifies that he meant a person, not an animal, while Wakeo thoughtfully considers what person she might resemble. Wakeo then offers another unhelpful clue, stating that people often say she looks just like her mother, which does absolutely nothing to help Mizuno. He slumps in defeat, his face a mask of agony as he realizes this will be a drawn-out war because she seems determined not to give him any real hints. Just then, another student named Yamamoto arrives, telling Mizuno that the teacher was looking for him to get more soap. Mizuno groans at the amazing timing of the interruption, while Wakeo waves to him from the window, cheerfully wishing him safe travels as he leaves. Meanwhile, the 3 students who ditched their cleaning duties are seen walking down the hall complaining. One says that cleaning sucks and the forced work is an abuse of power, while his friend points out that the only other option was to write an apology essay. The first slacker then turns to Wakeo, who is nearby, and asks if she hates it too, but she calmly replies that it doesn't really bother her. The slacker laughs and calls her a nice girl, telling her she's allowed to complain, but Wakeo insists she isn't lying. The slackers then continue their conversation, confidently saying that since they have a goody-goody like Mizuno in their group, he'd probably finish any work they left behind all by himself. They laugh together, with one saying, "Thank God for people like him," and another adding that they would only be getting in his way if they tried to help. Wakeo overhears their shameless conversation and speaks up, calmly stating that while they are free to think of Mizuno however they want, using the excuse that they would only get in the way to do nothing is pathetic. She adds that Mizuno is doing the job of the people who weren't there, and she personally doesn't find the work difficult at all. In a powerful, silent moment, she looks down upon the three slackers with an aura of pure scorn, finishing her thought by pointedly asking if making such shameless excuses is something they would do, which completely silences and intimidates them. Later, as Mizuno walks through the school, he devises a new plan, realizing he doesn't have to ask Wakeo herself and can instead ask her friend Yamamoto, who would likely give a more direct answer. Just then, Wakeo calls out his name, and when he turns, she explains she was just on her way to rinse her hands before apologizing for stopping him. Before leaving, she tells Mizuno that she thinks the fact that he takes everything so seriously is one of his greatest strengths. This leaves Mizuno standing alone in the hall, completely bewildered by her comment and wondering what just happened. He then runs back toward his work area, shouting in disbelief as he sees the group of slackers are now actively cleaning the floors. One of them approaches Mizuno and pats him on the back, thanking him for doing their part and telling him not to worry because they have it covered now. Mizuno looks over at Yamamoto with a suspicious expression, thinking this sudden change of heart is unusually nice of them. Deciding to act on his earlier plan, Mizuno carefully asks Yamamoto who he thinks Wakeo-san looks like, trying to make the question sound as casual as possible. The final panels reveal Yamamoto's bizarre thoughts, as he imagines Wakeo as a fearsome bear or some other kind of carnivore, though he also pictures her as a cat. The chapter ends with Mizuno's confused reaction as he tries to process this information, picturing Wakeo with the snarling face of a bear on her uniformed body and wondering if she really looks like something like that. In a classroom now empty after the school day has ended, a conversation begins about the difficulty of the day's math lesson. The clock on a smartphone shows that it is 4 p.m., signaling the end of classes as a male student named Mizuno-san decides to stay a bit longer. He is still at his desk reviewing the lesson when he asks his classmate, Wakeo-san, why she also has not gone home yet. Wakeo-san stands beside his desk and curiously asks if he is playing a game on his phone, to which he replies with a simple yes. A view of his phone screen reveals a game interface with some dark splotches as he holds it horizontally, ready to play. Mizuno-san explains with excitement that he has been waiting all day to play because a new area was added to this popular game called Predator, where the main goal is to gather materials while avoiding monsters in order to craft weapons and then hunt those very same creatures. Wakeo-san remarks that he must really enjoy the game, and Mizuno-san, with a comically grumpy expression, admits that the real reason he is staying late is to avoid his mother's friends who are visiting his house. He imagines them pinching his cheeks and making annoying comments about how much he has grown, which is an experience he clearly wants to avoid. She tells him she won't be staying long, but he reassures her that it is okay for her to remain. As he returns to his game, the atmosphere suddenly shifts and he is shown with wide, terrified eyes as he feels an immense pressure from Wakeo-san watching him intently from over his shoulder. His eye reflects the intensity of her unseen gaze, and he panics internally because even though her hair covers her eyes, he can feel her powerful stare. His hands begin to tremble uncontrollably while he tries to play the game under this intense scrutiny. The pressure becomes too much, and he lets out a silent, comical scream as Wakeo-san calmly points out that his character in the game has just died. Startled by his character's death, Mizuno-san turns around quickly and asks Wakeo-san if she needed something or if he was being too loud, but she just says sorry. After a moment, she surprises him by asking if playing a game in an empty classroom after school is something that could be considered youthful. He looks completely bewildered by her strange question as she continues with a dreamy expression, explaining that such an activity has a special feeling and is an experience unique to their time as students. Understanding what she is implying, Mizuno-san realizes she wants to try the game herself, and she shyly admits that she was hoping for a turn. He tells her she should have just asked from the beginning and happily agrees to let her play. He begins to explain the game's controls, telling her to move by sliding her fingers and to tap the pick up button when it appears near items, which she confirms she understands that Wakeo-san then reveals that she has never played a game on her phone before and is very excited to try, a confession that leaves Mizuno-san completely shocked. Her inexperience becomes immediately obvious as she holds the phone and tilts it from side to side, complaining that it is hard to see while trying to turn her character left. She then wonders aloud why nothing is moving on the screen, and Mizuno-san has a moment of intense internal panic as he realizes she is hopelessly bad at the game and has probably just run her character into a wall. Despite her lack of skill, Wakeo-san comments on the game's beautiful graphics and then exclaims with delight that she has successfully picked up a stick. Seeing her genuine enjoyment, Mizuno-san decides to just let her have fun and patiently guides her, saying they should start by collecting sticks to craft a weapon. The game's inventory screen shows that she has found 2 sticks and 3 stones, and an in-game character announces that many items have been found in the area. He then instructs her to find a workshop in the game so she can craft her items. She identifies a building and he tells her to select the materials, explaining that she can now make an axe, which is a great starting weapon. With her newly crafted weapon, Mizuno-san smiles and tells her that she is now ready to proceed. He reassures her that since it is a beginner area, she should be able to handle it, just as a monster appears on screen and threatens to attack her character. Wakeo-san calmly observes that the enemy seems formidable and that she is having trouble landing a hit. In stark contrast, Mizuno-san freaks out behind her with a comical stress mustache on his face, yelling at her to just tap on the enemy and asking what she is even doing. As her character takes damage, she cries out that it hurts and she is under attack, feeling like she is about to be defeated. Unable to watch any longer, Mizuno-san apologizes and asks her to give him the phone so he can help. After taking over and winning the fight, Mizuno-san stands up, looking tired but relieved as he wipes his brow and comments on how difficult it is to play together on such a small screen. He turns to compliment Wakeo-san, telling her she did very well for her first time playing. However, she remains completely silent, and he calls her name with a puzzled expression, wondering what is wrong. He starts to worry, asking if she is okay and questioning whether she might be angry at him for interfering with her game. Suddenly, Mizuno-san has a shocking realization, his face frozen in horror. It dawns on him that in his haste to take the phone from her, he had instinctively grabbed her hand without thinking, and now he is panicking, convinced that she is absolutely furious with him for in an art class where the students have been given an assignment to sketch portraits of the person sitting next to them. The teacher emphasizes that the most crucial part of sketching is observation and that students must use shading while paying close attention to their partner. At the end of the class, they will also evaluate each other's drawings. This presents a major problem for a student named Mizuno-kun, who looks completely stressed and sweaty as he realizes he is partnered with Wakeo-san, a girl whose face is always mysteriously obscured by shadow. He feels he is completely screwed in this situation. The classroom scene shows various students working diligently at their easels while Mizuno-kun sits in the foreground, contemplating his predicament with a look of pure anguish. He wonders how he is possibly going to get through the class, feeling that this is the worst possible assignment to have with Wakeo-san. His mind races with the question of how he can draw a face that does not seem to exist, feeling that everyone else has a much easier task. He decides to start by drawing everything else and leave the face for later. We then see his drawing board, which shows a completed sketch of Wakeo-san's hair and uniform, but the space for her face is completely blank. He is stumped and wonders what he should do now. Suddenly his teacher, a woman with blonde hair tied back, leans in and expresses shock that Mizuno-kun has not even started drawing yet, which startles him. Mizuno-kun's own face becomes a dark shadow as he internally considers just handing in the portrait without a face. The teacher admonishes him, stating that the assignment is focused on the face and that he cannot let embarrassment stop him. She instructs him to pay close attention to the eyes, nose, and mouth, and their positions relative to each other. Mizuno-kun looks on with a deadpan expression, thinking to himself that his partner doesn't have any of those features, though he gives a weak right. In response, he feels bad for Wakeo-san but resolves to just draw something haphazardly, knowing he will lose points if he doesn't draw the face properly. A horrifying thought then strikes Mizuno-kun like a bolt of lightning as he imagines what might be under the shadow. He panics, wondering if she has a defining feature he's supposed to capture, like thick eyebrows, droopy eyes, or even a mole. As his anxiety escalates, we see Wakeo-san at her own easel, chuckling to herself as she thinks about how curious she is to see how Mizuno-san will draw her face. This is followed by a shot of Mizuno-kun having a complete meltdown at his easel, screaming internally as the pressure becomes too much. In a surprising twist, The perspective shifts to Wakeo-san's drawing, revealing a sketch of Mizuno-kun with an equally blank face, as she admits to herself that she hasn't drawn his face yet either. Wakeo-san is shown pondering her own drawing, tapping her pencil to her chin as she tries to figure out what to do. She decides that she will have to rely on her memory to draw his face. Her memory brings up several of Mizuno-san's rather unflattering and comical expressions, one where he looks shocked, another where he is tired, and a third where he is sleepy and drooling. She thinks that while she does enjoy seeing all his expressions, she probably shouldn't draw one of those particular faces. Meanwhile, Mizuno-kun is also running out of time and growing more desperate, wondering how someone is supposed to draw Naperbo, a faceless ghost. He glances over to see how Wakeo-san is doing and sees her slumped over her easel, which only adds to his stress as time ticks away. Feeling defeated, Mizuno-kun stares at his faceless portrait of Wakeo-san and sighs, giving up completely as he thinks there is nothing he can do. Just then, he remembers the teacher's key piece of advice. The most important thing when it comes to sketching is observation. This sparks a dramatic idea in his mind, and with a fiercely determined look in his eye, he decides he must awaken his inner eye through intense focus. He begins staring intently at Wakeo-san, believing that if he just looks long and hard enough, his brain might fill in the missing details. This intense staring makes Wakeo-san incredibly nervous and uncomfortable, and she eventually asks him to stop. Startled back to reality, Mizuno-kun lets out a surprised "huh?" and apologizes profusely before hiding behind his easel in embarrassment. Just as he is reeling from his failed attempt, the teacher announces that time is up and everyone needs to finish their sketches. In a final burst of panic, Mizuno-kun realizes he is completely out of time and decides to go for broke. With a determined expression, he puts his pencil to the canvas, ready to draw, come what may. The air fills with the sounds of frantic sketching and erasing as he rushes to complete the portrait in the final seconds. The result of Wakeo-san's effort is revealed first, a portrait of Mizuno-kun where his face is a terrifying, smudged mess of eraser bits that form a creepy smile and hollow eyes. Later, another student is shown looking at Mizuno-kun's final drawing and jumping back in shock. His portrait of Wakeo-san depicts her with a furiously angry and distressed expression on her face. Mizuno-san, in a state of utter despair, slumped over his desk with a look of gloom so profound that his classmate, Wakeo-san, observes that he looks like the world is ending. She approaches and asks what has him so down, prompting a close-up of his distraught face, which is etched with shock and misery. He explains to her that a video game they both enjoy is having a special collaboration with a convenience store, offering a free promotional folder with the purchase of 2 snacks. His gloom stems from the fact that he has searched everywhere for this folder, but every store has completely run out of them. His morning was particularly rough, as he describes waking up at 5 in the morning just so he could check 3 different stores before school started, all without any success. Wakeo-san listens to his story, understanding the depth of his disastrous morning. After school ends, a still determined Mizuno-san says goodbye to her, planning to visit another convenience store that is even farther away. As he rushes off, he panics, realizing he is about to miss his bus, but a quick look at his phone reveals a helpful message from his mother, who is going out for milk and offers to pick him up, solving his travel issue. As he leaves, Wakeo-san reflects on how his quest for the folder had left him completely preoccupied and unable to concentrate during class all day. Later, while riding in the car with her own mother, Wakeo-san feels a desire to help her friend and makes a rare request to stop by a convenience store. Her mother agrees, a bit surprised by her daughter's sudden interest. Inside the first store, Wakeo-san spots the promotional display Mizuno-san had described, but a sign confirms her fears, stating that the Predator file folders are completely out of stock. Seeing this, she understands just how popular the item is and asks her mother if they can please try just one more store. Their journey leads them to a more out-of-the-way convenience store, where Wakeo-san scans the aisles hopefully. Her eyes soon land on the promotional display, and she is thrilled to see that they still have them, with a single, precious folder left sitting in the box. Holding the last folder, she begins to imagine giving it to Mizuno-san, wondering how he would react to the surprise. She pictures him being shocked, completely speechless, and the delightful thought causes her to let out a quiet little laugh to herself, which earns her a confused look from another woman shopping nearby. Her daydream is suddenly interrupted when she notices another person approaching the display, intending to take the last folder. With a jolt, Wakeo-san springs into action, quickly reaching out and snatching the folder for herself just in the nick of time. She proceeds to the checkout counter, where she purchases 2 items for 270 yen, officially securing the prize. Leaving the store with the folder safely in a small bag, she feels a rush of excitement, eagerly looking forward to giving it to Mizuno-san the next day. Just as she steps outside, she is met with a startling coincidence, running directly into Mizuno-san, who has just arrived at the same store. They are both shocked to see each other, and he quickly says he has no time to stand around before hurrying towards the entrance. Thinking fast, Wakeo-san hides the bag behind her back and strikes up a conversation, remarking on the coincidence of them meeting outside of school for the first time. She casually asks if he was able to find the item he was looking for, and he replies with a dejected sigh that he had no luck. Seeing his disappointment, Mizuno-san starts to turn away to go home, but Wakeo-san stops him. He turns back, confused to see her still standing there, and she tells him that she has something she wants to give him. She then reveals the folder, pulling it from the bag she had hidden behind her back. She explains that it just came with some snacks she wanted to buy anyway and offers it to him as a gift. Mizuno-san is completely stunned, his body trembling as he stares at the folder in disbelief, barely able to ask if she is truly sure she wants to give it to him. She confirms with a simple yes, and he is overwhelmed with emotion, only able to utter a soft "oh" as he takes it. His shock then melts away into a look of pure, unadulterated joy, and a huge, radiant smile lights up his entire face. He thanks her profusely, explaining how he had been searching high and low for it everywhere. He is absolutely ecstatic, declaring that the folder is now his greatest treasure and that he can finally rest easy. He immediately offers to pay her back for the snacks, but she politely declines, insisting she was going to buy them anyway. Using the excuse that her mother is waiting, she says her goodbyes and leaves him standing there. On his walk home, Mizuno-san is visibly thrilled, holding the folder and practically bouncing with happiness. When he arrives, his mother welcomes him and asks if he found what he was looking for. He says yes, but when she assumes it was a snack, he happily replies that it was something much better. Meanwhile, back in the car, Wakeo-san is completely flustered, her face beet red from his overwhelming reaction, a fact her mother cheerfully points out. As the car drives away, Mizuno-san has a sudden realization, a ping in his mind as he understands he just missed a perfect chance to meet Wakeo-san's mom. In the car, Wakeo-san hides her bright red face in her hands, thinking to herself that Mizuno-san's incredibly sincere and happy reaction was simply unfair. On a very hot day where the sun is shining brightly, a young man named Mizuno complains that his dark school uniform is too suffocating and he can't wait for the summer uniforms to arrive. As he and his friend walk, the sound of birds flapping their wings can be heard. His friend, a girl named Wakeo-san, enthusiastically suggests they tell each other ghost stories to cool down, mentioning that scary stories and urban legends are essential youth experiences that will chill them to the bone instantly. She reminds Mizuno that he told her a story once before, but Mizuno looks tired and unenthusiastic, admitting that he is actually quite bad with horror. He explains that he always gets traumatized by scary movies, but for some reason, he just can't stop watching them. Wakeo-san proposes they make it a little competition since they have time before class begins, suggesting they score each other's stories on a scale from 1 to 10. Mizuno reluctantly agrees, stating that he doesn't have many stories to tell and they are just killing time anyway. Wakeo-san decides she will go first and begins her tale, explaining that this is something that happened at school while Mizuno listens with a bored look, resting his chin on his hand. Her story begins with a lone female student walking down a dark and empty school hallway late in the evening. The student had forgotten something at school and had to go back to get it. She wanted to get home as quickly as possible, so she walked swiftly towards her classroom. As she got closer to the room, she suddenly heard a person's voice, making her wonder if someone else was still there. Curious, she peeked into the classroom to see what was happening. Inside, she saw a female student she had never seen before, who had long, unkempt hair and was standing over a desk. The mysterious girl was looking down and softly muttering something. The student in the story got closer to hear what she was saying and heard the girl whisper that she wanted to graduate too. When the student in the story looked away for just a split second and then turned back to say something, the mysterious girl had completely vanished. Wakeo-san finishes her story by explaining that no one ever found out who that girl was, but perhaps she was a spirit who couldn't graduate because of some misfortune. Mizuno, looking completely unimpressed, tells her that the story just sounds made up and the part about the long, unkempt hair is an old cliché. So he gives it a 3 out of 10. Wakeo-san comments that he is being quite strict, and Mizuno replies that he is not that much of a horror lightweight. Wakeo-san then adds a chilling detail, mentioning that one time she came into school and found salt on her desk. This makes Mizuno freeze with terror, and he gets sudden chills as he fearfully asks Wakeo-san if she was the girl in that story. Wakeo-san gives a mysterious non-answer, simply saying, perhaps, perhaps not. Now terrified that he might get cursed if he gives her story a bad score, Mizuno quickly changes his rating, bumping it up to an 8 by adding 5 extra points. Wakeo-san looks pleased, pointing out that he has cooled right down, and tells him it is now his turn to tell a story. Mizuno begins his story, which happened to him when he was a child. He explains that his dad gave him an old camera he wasn't using anymore, and he was so ecstatic that he took many pictures with it, even taking a photo of his cat. One day, while he was outside taking pictures in the woods, he spotted a gigantic beetle on a tree and of course took a picture of it. He was so proud of the photo that he just had to show it to someone, so he showed it to his dad. His dad praised the picture he took, but then he asked Mizuno a strange question, "Who's the little girl you were playing with?" In the present, Mizuno looks completely horrified as he finishes his account. He tells Wakeo-san that he was so scared that he never looked at that picture himself, and he never used that camera again. Wakeo-san finds his story quite unnerving and observes that Mizuno seems to be the kind of person who attracts oddities like ghosts and yokai. Wakeo-san considers his story and concedes that it has some scary aspects. However, since he never actually looked at the picture to see the proof, she says the best she can do is give him 6 points. Mizuno agrees that her score is fair. Just then, another girl approaches Wakeo-san to ask about their committee duties, interrupting their competition. Wakeo-san says they will have to continue later and leaves with the other student. Alone at his desk, Mizuno thinks about what Wakeo-san said about yokai and starts to wonder if she has any connection to the Naperbo, which is a faceless yokai from Japanese folklore. Mizuno's thoughts spiral as he considers that the Naperbo is a yokai that has been around for centuries. He briefly denies the existence of yokai but then wonders what that would make Wakeo-san. This train of thought leads him to a single, absurd conclusion, and he whispers aloud, wondering if Wakeo-san is some kind of crazy old granny. He immediately laughs it off, thinking he can't believe such a ridiculous thing just slipped out of his mouth. To his absolute horror, he realizes Wakeo-san is standing right behind him, having overheard his comment. He gasps in terror as he sees an angry mark next to her and understands she heard everything. The situation is so frightening for him that he imagines it scoring a full 10 points on the horror scale as he trembles with fear. The chapter concludes with a final image of Mizuno arriving at school to find a small package on his desk mysteriously labeled Fancy Salt, leaving him completely bewildered at INA classroom. A substitute teacher with glasses and neatly combed hair announces that he will be taking over the world history class for the day. He holds up a stack of papers and informs the students that he has prepared some exercises for them to complete and submit by the end of the period. This substitute teacher is Mr. Inokida, and one of the students, a girl named Wakeo whose face is hidden by her long dark hair, observes him from her desk. The atmosphere is one of quiet boredom, with another student thinking how dull a self-study period is, especially since the notoriously strict Mr. Inokida is supervising. The student recalls how Mr. Inokida is known for being easily angered, and anyone who gets on his bad side is in for a difficult time. As the quiet study period drags on, a male student with short, spiky blonde hair named Mizuno begins to draw something with a mischievous grin on his face, thinking to himself that it would be a shame to erase his creation. Wakeo, sitting beside him, is startled when Mizuno leans over and asks if she is drawing a picture of their teacher, Mr. Inokida. Flustered, she quickly denies it, but Mizuno insists he already saw her drawing and there is no need to hide it, finding her reaction quite amusing. He reveals that he also likes to draw and will show her his work when he is finished. As Wakeo watches, Mizuno quickly sketches a simple portrait of Mr. Inokida's head and collar on his notebook paper. Wakeo is impressed by how fast he finished the drawing, and when she compliments his skill, he thanks her with a soft chuckle as a light bulb appears above his head, signifying a new idea. He holds up the paper for her to see, showing the drawing of Mr. Inokida with an arrow pointing away from it. Mizuno explains that this is a picture word game where they take turns drawing images based on the last syllable of the previous word. He mentions that he used to play this game all the time in middle school, enjoying the thrill of trying not to get caught by the teacher. Wakeo thinks his reasoning is rather simple, but she is also surprised to learn about his unusual hobby as they begin to play. Mizuno looks over at Wakeo's paper and sees she has already drawn a sequence of faces, starting from his drawing of Inokida. He tries to decipher her drawings, realizing the next word in the chain is pig, but he pauses to wonder if her tendency to draw only faces has a deeper meaning, perhaps reflecting a worry about her own faceless appearance in his eyes. He quickly dismisses the thought as his own overthinking. Now it is his turn to draw something starting with the syllable from the previous word. He concentrates intensely, his head comically seeming to split in two from the effort, while Wakeo diligently works on her next illustration. Mizuno decides to draw bubble tea, a drink he has never tried before, and passes his completed drawing to Wakeo. She has a moment of revelation as she looks at his work, which depicts a cup with several black circles and a straw. Wakeo then takes her turn, passing a new drawing back to Mizuno for him to guess. Mizuno stares at her drawing, completely baffled. The image is an abstract collection of shapes inside a box, which Wakeo has privately labeled as a fish tank, a water filter, and snails. He is confused because he cannot think of a word related to his bubble tea drawing that would lead to this new image. He sweats nervously, wondering if the misunderstanding is because Wakeo has never seen bubble tea or if his own drawing skills are simply terrible. Their game is abruptly interrupted when Mr. Inokita angrily calls out for all students who have not yet submitted their assignments to come to the front of the class. The teacher then confronts Mizuno, holding up the drawing of the bubble tea and snails game, and scolds him for treating the class like a joke. After the confrontation, Wakeo admits to Mizuno that she initially thought his drawing was of a snail. Meanwhile, she looks at the paper and feels embarrassed that she misinterpreted his drawing of bubble tea as a snail tank. After class, Mizuno looks contemplative as Wakeo continues the conversation, asking him why he always draws animals instead of people. He tries to deflect the question by asking about the next day's schedule, but she insists on an answer. He explains that while he can draw faces, he just prefers not to. Wakeo then asks if she can keep the paper with their game on it. When Mizuno asks why, she explains that it was her first time playing a picture word game with a friend, and she wants to hold on to it as a happy memory. Touched by her sincerity, Mizuno understands and agrees. As he gets up to leave, he wishes her a good day and says he will see her tomorrow. Wakeo waves goodbye from her desk, and after he walks away, she sits alone for a moment before calling out to him. She asks if they can play the game again sometime, adding a playful jab that she hopes his drawings are better next time. From the doorway, Mizuno agrees to play again. Later, a thought bubble reveals Mizuno is still a bit bothered that his bubble tea drawing was mistaken for a snail tank and decides he should probably practice drawing more, while another thought bubble shows that Wakeo is incredibly happy about his promise to play with her again. Mizuno lies on his back, looking completely bored as he holds his smartphone, feeling that having nothing to do is truly tasteless. He finds himself mindlessly scrolling through his social media feed and realizes he has been spending his time looking at selfies of people he doesn't even know. He then gets a thoughtful expression, wondering if taking a picture of his classmate Wakeo would allow him to finally see her face, something he apparently cannot do directly. He contemplates how strange it is that everyone posts photos of themselves online without any fear of the potential dangers. A moment later, a brilliant idea strikes him, and he decides he needs to formulate a proper plan, praising himself for his own cleverness before getting started. Putting his thoughts into action, Mizuno approaches Wakeo while she sits quietly at her desk reading a book. With his hands clasped together and a hopeful smile, he asks if he could take her photograph for what he calls a small experiment. Wakeo looks up at him and simply asks for his reason. He tries to reassure her that he won't use it for anything weird, but she is unconvinced and bluntly refuses, saying his request sounds too suspicious. Mizuno's face falls in defeat as he realizes he should have expected her rejection and thinks he should probably just give up on his quest. However, his determination quickly returns, and he decides he won't give up so easily because he has already prepared a backup plan. A simple diagram helpfully illustrates Mizuno's new strategy, which involves first distracting Wakeo by making a random comment, such as pointing out the beautiful weather. While her attention is diverted, he will secretly snap her picture with his phone, and his plan will conclude with him successfully capturing an image of her. He imagines his triumph, believing his carefully calculated plan is foolproof and will certainly result in him getting a photo of Wakeo. Mizuno attempts to execute his sneaky plan by walking over to Wakeo and nervously commenting on how nice the sky looks that day. As he clumsily tries to take a photo while promising himself he'll delete it immediately after, Wakeo turns to him and unexpectedly offers to let him take a picture for a souvenir, causing his entire scheme to fail spectacularly, leaving him completely stunned and at a loss for words. Undeterred by his previous failure, Mizuno devises yet another strategy, this time choosing to hide behind a wall at a distance from Wakeo's desk. He peeks around the corner with a mischievous grin, aiming his phone's camera toward her. He feels very confident that from this hidden vantage point, she will have no idea that he is taking her picture while she sits peacefully at her desk. His plan is foiled once again when a larger student walks past and completely blocks his line of sight, obscuring Wakeo from his camera's view. An arrow on the panel points out her location behind the student, highlighting his bad luck. Mizuno becomes frustrated, realizing that getting close enough for a clear shot is too risky because she would definitely notice him trying to take a picture. He slumps his shoulders in utter disappointment, looking completely dejected as his grand plan, which he had spent the entire previous night devising, falls apart. It suddenly dawns on him that the reason for his failure is that Wakeo's seat is situated in a perfect blind spot for any camera, a critical piece of information he had foolishly overlooked. While Mizuno is still trying to figure out a new angle, Wakeo suddenly appears right behind him, startling him as she asks what he is doing. He turns around in surprise, and she observes that he still hasn't given up on trying to get a picture of her. She then asks if he really wants a photo that much, and to his astonishment, she takes his smartphone right out of his hand. Wakeo holds the phone up, quickly snaps a picture of herself, and then promptly hands the device back to him, simply stating that the task is done. Mizuno is left utterly speechless and bewildered by how effortlessly she accomplished the very thing he had been struggling so hard to do, and he can only manage to mutter a quiet thank you as he takes his phone back. When Mizuno looks at the photo Wakeo took, his face contorts into a mask of pure horror and disbelief because the image is a ridiculously distorted and goofy-looking selfie. He looks at her in confusion, asking why she would trick him like that. She calmly explains that it wasn't a trick at all, as she had only asked if he wanted a picture before taking one, and she adds that she knew all along he wouldn't use her photo for any malicious purpose. As she turns to walk away, Mizuno notices a faint blush on her cheeks, and she quietly admits that she felt a little embarrassed. The unexpected turn of events leaves him completely speechless and flustered. Later that night, as Mizuno lies in his bed scrolling through his phone again, he reflects on the day's failure but thinks that maybe it wasn't so bad after all. He feels like he's wasted another day but then remembers the picture she took and notices that it's actually a video file. He excitedly decides to watch the video to finally see Wakeo's face, realizing he must have accidentally pressed the record button during their interaction at school. However, as he plays the video, the image on his screen is completely glitchy and distorted, making it impossible to see her face clearly, mirroring his inability to see her in person and rendering all his efforts completely useless at a television broadcast presenting the weather forecast, which announces a coming heatwave across eastern and western Japan. Due to this sudden increase in temperature, the report advises viewers to wear breathable clothes such as colorful cotton short-sleeved shirts. A long-sleeved winter uniform is shown hanging by itself before the scene shifts to a girl named Wakeo-san, who is now wearing her short-sleeved summer uniform. She stands amongst a field of flowers and touches her collar, feeling the warmth but resolving that she will be fine with the change. Later, Wakeo-san looks up toward the sky with her hand shielding her from the sun, feeling as though she might die from the intense heat as the end of summer draws near. While walking through a school corridor, she observes that all the other students are also dressed in their summer uniforms, just as she had expected. She reflects on how wonderful the summer uniforms really are, and nearby, two male students are having a conversation. One of them asks what is so wonderful, and his friend clarifies that he is talking about the summer uniforms, jokingly pointing out how slow his friend is to notice. The perspective then shows the two boys watching a group of 3 girls in their summer attire, and they think about how the sweltering heat is causing parts of the girls' bodies that are normally hidden to be revealed. They see this as a magnificent sight, a true feast for the eyes. One of the boys wonders if this is the typical feeling high school boys get when seeing girls in their summer outfits and then questions how his friend Mizuno-kun would react in a similar situation. The scene then focuses on a boy with spiky hair who watches a girl with long, dark hair walk away, surrounded by a fiery aura, and he thinks to himself how beautiful she is and that summer is truly the best season. The story cuts back to Wakeo-san, who is now inside a room and standing thoughtfully with her finger on her chin. She considers her situation to be a bit difficult and puzzles over what her next move should be, her mind filled with uncertainty as she is shown in a close-up surrounded by floating bubbles. Wakeo-san continues to think to herself, feeling a deep sense of embarrassment over the idea of doing something bold in public and worrying that she would be perceived as strange for it. She comes to the conclusion that in order to act, she needs to find a role model to follow. She is shown standing still and trying out different poses, first with her hands down at her sides and then with them crossed in front of her as she struggles with her indecision. Turning her head away, she covers her mouth with her hand, blushing as she thinks about how daring the summer uniform feels. Her confidence wavers as she starts to question whether Mizuno-kun would even notice or care about her summer uniform at all. However, Wakeo-san quickly dismisses her doubts and strengthens her resolve, believing firmly that Mizuno-kun will indeed have the reaction she is hoping for. The scene briefly shows Mizuno-kun with a bored expression, picking his nose as he asks Wakeo-san if she is lost in a fantasy. After arriving at school, Wakeo-san looks around and wonders where Mizuno-kun is, noticing he has not arrived yet. Once inside the classroom, Wakeo-san prepares herself for what she sees as a final battle, viewing her next action as a significant gamble. Another student remarks that the air conditioning has been turned on, and someone decides it is time to close the classroom window. Wakeo-san reaches out to close the window herself but is suddenly shocked when her hand finds nothing there, and she wonders where the window has gone and why she is unable to touch it. Suddenly, another hand firmly slides the window shut. It is Mizuno-kun, who has stepped in and tells Wakeo-san that he has closed it for her. Wakeo-san becomes flustered just by seeing Mizuno-kun's face from the side while he stands so close to her. He looks over at her with a thoughtful expression and calmly notes that she is wearing her summer uniform. He also makes a curious remark, wondering if even a demon can feel the heat. Mizuno-kun then apologizes, possibly thinking he overstepped by helping when she didn't ask. Wakeo-san seems to want to say that she could have managed to close the window on her own. Meanwhile, a different girl with short, light-colored hair rests her head on her desk in the background and watches their interaction. She thinks about how it is those same two people again and notes that they appear to be good friends, though she also finds their exchange to be quite noisy. A final note explains that a girl is feeling annoyed by the pair in the corner of the classroom. Mizuno-kun walks towards his school under the sweltering sun, feeling the intense heat that signals the imminent arrival of summer while recalling that he has to attend his classes just like any other day. As he glances back, he sees a female classmate walking behind him, thinking to himself that there is only one thing out of the ordinary in his daily life. In the classroom, a girl with long, light-colored hair cheerfully greets Mizuno-kun, even though she is known for being expressionless. Another boy approaches and asks Mizuno why his face looks like that of an old man, to which Mizuno simply replies that he has looked this way ever since he was born. Elsewhere in the noisy classroom, a girl named Ashikawa sits alone at her desk, sighing deeply as she feels a sense of sadness. She observes two classmates chatting and wonders if they are in a relationship, finding it strange that they still refer to each other by their last names. Ashikawa wishes she could be more open with others but feels that it is something she is incapable of doing. She thinks back on how difficult it is for her to start a conversation with anyone and recalls a time when someone asked if she was alright, causing her to become flustered and meekly say she was fine. As she rests her head on her hand, she questions how she can become more like everyone else, feeling that her 15 years of being this way have been a waste of time with no signs of change, and her situation seems hopeless. Later, Mizuno's friend informs Ashikawa that since her partner for class duty is absent, the teacher has asked Mizuno to fill in and help her. Mizuno looks on uncomfortably as he has been involuntarily assigned the task. Ashikawa, however, sees this as a perfect chance to make progress. Determined to talk to him, she musters up her courage and introduces herself as Miyu Ashikawa, while Mizuno's friend introduces him as well. Despite this small victory, Ashikawa soon puts her head down on her desk, overwhelmed with frustration because she feels she failed yet again. As she is preparing to leave, Mizuno, who is still in the classroom, asks if she is not going home yet. Ashikawa internally berates herself for being useless and wishes she could start her life over. Mizuno tells her he understands and mentions that he needs to meet with someone else about tomorrow's duty, saying he will see her then before he leaves her behind. When they are alone together for their class duty, Mizuno looks through a notebook and compliments Ashikawa on her detailed notes. She recognizes this as a rare, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity that she absolutely must take. Mizuno then mentions something that another classmate, Wakeo-san, had done previously. Upon hearing Wakeo's name, Ashikawa's eyes widen, and with a surge of determination, she asks Mizuno directly how he and Wakeo became friends. Mizuno is visibly confused by the question and wonders aloud how they became friends in the first place. His response completely shocks Ashikawa, who expresses her disbelief that he does not even know the answer himself. Flustered, she covers her face and questions why he would ask her something like that. Mizuno misinterprets her distress, thinking she is upset by the noise he and his friends make, and he apologizes for being unobservant of his surroundings. Ashikawa is horrified by his misunderstanding and quickly tries to explain that he has gotten the wrong idea entirely. She confesses the real reason for her question is that she feels jealous when she sees him talking with others so easily, admitting that she is terrible at starting conversations herself. She reveals that she has been this way for 15 years and had hoped that starting high school would bring about a change, but she still finds herself unable to make new friends. Overwhelmed with emotion, Ashikawa bows her head deeply and apologizes, explaining that she only wanted to ask for advice on how to make friends and had no other strange intentions. Mizuno, still confused, asks why she is apologizing to him. Realizing she has created yet another awkward and dark memory for herself, Ashikawa becomes mortified while insisting that nothing is wrong and that she was being sincere. From the hallway, the dark-haired girl, Wakeo, is seen secretly peering into the classroom, watching Mizuno with a curious expression before she turns and walks away down the empty corridor. Mizuno sitting at his classroom desk, looking utterly bored with his chin resting in his hand as two female classmates chat cheerfully behind him. He had just begun to settle into his new school life when a significant event was announced, foreshadowing a major change. Mizuno's boredom quickly turns to despair as he buries his face in his hands, crying out in anguish. From the desk beside him, a girl named Wakeo-san, who is resting her head on her arms, observes his dramatic reaction and remarks that his face has disappeared once again. The cause of his distress is the impending arrival of the school's sports festival, an event he clearly dreads. Wakeo-san tries to lift his spirits, encouraging him to feel happy about what should be a fun event for young people like them. She shares her own excitement, mentioning that she is eagerly looking forward to participating in the three-legged race for the very first time. She then turns her attention back to Mizuno-kun, asking him if he has decided which sport he will join. Mizuno reacts with visible horror and tears in his eyes, pleading with her not to dredge up painful memories from his past. He explains that he has no fond recollections of sports festivals, as they are filled with humiliating failures. He vividly remembers dropping the baton during a relay race, which led to his class finishing in last place, and another time when he tripped during a 100-meter dash and once again came in last. Fueled by these past traumas, he declares with fierce determination that in order to avoid such shame again, he must win the three-legged race and will not go it alone. Wakeo-san observes his intense resolve with a small, surprised expression. Back in the classroom, the teacher announces that he will select representatives for each event, which immediately sends Mizuno into a panic, clutching his stomach as he feels completely unprepared. The teacher asks the students what events they plan to join. One student asks if the relay runners will be chosen from the fastest students or the track team, while another asks Mizuno-kun directly if he is a fast runner. Mizuno replies that his speed is only average, which seems to slightly ease his anxiety. Wakeo-san offers some reassurance, pointing out that there are many fast students from different middle schools, so things should be fine. That a student then asks the teacher if participants for the relay and other races will be determined by a physical fitness test, and the teacher confirms that is the current plan. Another student decides to join the three-legged race, saying he wants to try it at least once, even if the outcome is poor. With that, the teacher announces they will draw lots to determine partners for the race. This news sends Mizuno into a state of utter shock as another student calls his name to come up and draw. As he walks up, one of his female classmates offers words of encouragement. Mizuno, however, is filled with dread, believing fate is never on his side and that he can only rely on his own strength. Meanwhile, the girls in the class note that while they aren't worried about their own partners, Mizuno-kun is the main point of concern. Wakeo-san internally resolves to be someone he can trust, telling herself to just believe in her. The scene shifts to a haunting close-up of Mizuno's face, his eyes appearing hollow and his expression shadowed with complete defeat. This is contrasted with an image of Wakeo-san, her face featureless but her determination clear as her silent promise to just trust me echoes in her mind, meeting his unspoken call of her name. A particularly charismatic classmate with curly hair approaches Mizuno with a dazzling smile, wishing him the best and hoping he enjoys the competition. Mizuno is stunned by this, while Wakeo-san urges him not to give up so easily. In utter dejection, Mizuno puts his head down on his desk, convinced that no one would cheer for him anyway and that his absence would prevent any disasters. It is then that Wakeo-san quietly places her hand on the desk near him, softly saying that she would be there for him. She leans closer, promising to cheer for him no matter the outcome and offering her unwavering support. Overwhelmed and embarrassed, Mizuno looks away with a pained expression and asks her to stop showing him sympathy. As the teacher calls for the girls to begin drawing lots for their three-legged race partners, Wakeo-san lets out a soft and clenches her hand into a determined fist. In the final moment, she is shown looking at the slip of paper she has drawn, which bears the number 2. An angry expression forms on her face as she thinks to herself how Mizuno is so completely oblivious to the feelings of others, setting the stage for a sports festival filled with surprises at a perfect, sunny day that is ideal for the school's big sports festival. In a moment of quiet reflection before the events, a boy with spiky blonde hair touches his ear and shyly admits he doesn't know something, while his friend looks on and mentions feeling a little envious of someone named Wakeo-san. Just then, an energetic girl with her hair in a high ponytail leaps into the air, declaring that the festival will surely create beautiful memories of their youth. A school-wide announcement crackles to life, calling for all students to gather at the entrance, setting an exciting tone for the day. The scene then focuses on a heartfelt promise as one character assures Mizuno-kun that they will support him no matter what the results are, explaining that having just one person on your side can give you the strength to face even the most desperate situations. The sports festival is in full swing with classic events like a fierce tug-of-war, a strategic cavalry battle, and a grueling tire-pulling race. After some intense competition, a group of students looks completely exhausted. One character sighs heavily, complaining that their legs are completely worn out and that the events were much harder than anticipated, admitting they shouldn't have underestimated their opponents. While some are tired, another student watches with excitement, wishing they could participate more. The action is non-stop, leaving them with no time to rest as another announcement calls for all participants in the three-legged race to assemble at the starting gate. At the gathering point, a girl with short, light-colored hair named Asakawa-san looks completely stunned as her partner, the dark-haired Wakeo-san, arrives and apologizes for the delay. Asakawa-san immediately starts to worry, telling Wakeo-san that she might slow them down. She explains that she is not a fast runner and that her short legs might make it difficult for them to find a good rhythm together, her face filled with anxiety about being a burden. Nearby, Mizuno-kun is seen thanking someone for coming to watch, saying their presence has made the day very enjoyable for him. Wakeo-san responds with kindness and reassurance, gently placing a hand on Asakawa-san's head and telling her not to think so poorly of herself. She advises her partner to stop worrying about winning and to concentrate only on the simple goal of passing the baton to the next teammate, as thinking about victory will only cause more stress. With a warm and encouraging look, Wakeo-san tells her they should just try their best together. As they get ready, a group of other female racers watches with a mix of determination and surprise on their faces. A small diagram shows the race plan, which involves running a lap and passing a baton. As their legs are tied together, Asakawa-san remarks that the strap feels a bit awkward while Wakeo-san checks to make sure she is okay. Startled at first, Asakawa-san quickly agrees that they will give it their all as other students urge them to get into position at the starting line. With everyone in position, the race begins. Wakeo-san and Asakawa-san try to coordinate their steps, calling out left and then right as they attempt to jog forward. However, their movements are not in sync, and in a moment of confusion, they stumble and fall to the ground. Asakawa-san is instantly filled with panic and apologizes over and over, taking all the blame for their fall. Their situation becomes worse when they realize the strap binding their legs together has completely come undone. Wakeo-san looks at the broken strap and then back at her frantic partner, calmly telling her to take a breath and stay calm. Watching this unfold from the sidelines, Mizuno-kun grows visibly concerned. A comedic, chibi-style drawing shows him clutching his head as a painful memory from the past seems to resurface. He worries about Wakeo-san and Asakawa-san, and his mind goes blank from the stress of the moment. Just then, he remembers the earlier promise of support he received, the words echoing in his mind that someone would be there for him even if he failed. This memory sparks a change in him, and with newfound determination, he cups his hands around his mouth. Breaking the tense silence, Mizuno-kun lets out a powerful shout of encouragement, yelling Wakeo-san's name and telling her that she can definitely do it, a passionate outburst that startles the other boys standing beside him. Hearing his voice cut through the noise of the crowd, Wakeo-san's expression shifts to one of pure resolve. Without a moment's hesitation, she grabs the strap and firmly reties it around her and Asakawa-san's ankles, declaring that they are going to continue the race. Asakawa-san looks up from the ground, her eyes wide with surprise at her partner's unwavering determination. Back on their feet, they begin to run again, this time moving in perfect harmony. Wakeo-san encourages her teammate, telling her they only have a little further to go and that they must keep pushing forward. Motivated by the supportive cheers, the two of them race toward the finish line, their coordinated effort a testament to their renewed spirit.